Hello everyone. Today we'll be overlooking IFRS 16 as our in the IFRS session. So IFRS 16. Let's start with the overview of this. IFRS 16 is actually a lease accounting standard that has been published by the IASB, and it has just come up in January 2016, and it is going to replace IAS 17, that is the international lease accounting standard that was earlier followed for the lease accounting. And the new IFRS 16 actually changes the way the companies are going to account for leases in their financial disclosures, especially in the balance sheets and the income statements. There was a loophole in IAS 17 that was that we're going to, of course, see through the IFRS 16 whole standard. It is just that I'm providing you a gist of why was it required when IAS 17 was already into existence. The main thing was that there was loophole in IAS 17 that there was a segregation of leases into operating leases and financial leases. Operating leases remained off balance sheet, and hence they were only expensed in your P&L and everything, and they didn't show up in your financial positions. So often the small investors who were not able to dig more in the financial statements of a company were remained of the knowledge that there is an operating lease or something that is a company is into. So that is the reason IFRS 16 has actually come up with this new method where the segregation is no longer there, and hence it is more aptly presentable and more properly disclosed in a balance sheet in their statement of financial position, as in what is the entity doing in the business and what is the entity hiring as an asset or a land as an asset or something like that, and how is the company providing for it. And as I informed you in the past IFRS sessions, the main IFRS whole single point agenda that IFRS has is they are just trying to make your financial statements more transparent and knowledgeable from the point of view of your user of your financial statement. So now the users of the financial statement, since they have become so much knowledgeable by all the new things that are coming up, there is so much knowledge everywhere around the world, so everyone is becoming knowledgeable about it, as in what are the technicalities, if I put it like that, what are the technicalities of a financial statement, how do you read a financial statement and everything. And since the users are getting so much educated, so the IFRS has actually made all your policies, frameworks, or accounting methods transparent enough to be understood by a normal user of your financial statement. So this also again IFRS 16 that has been come up is also on the same line, that it is more transparent to the users of your financial statement, as in what are the leases, what are the leased assets, what are the leased liabilities, and how are you accounting for that. And where all you need to do is just put all your leases in your financial statements as in your balance sheets, and do not keep it any of your leases in your footnote, so that the normal user cannot dig into that. Yes, so let's start as in with what is IFRS 16. IFRS 16 actually establishes the principles for the recognition, measurement, presentation, disclosure of leases, the leased assets, with the objective of ensuring that the leasee and the lessor provide relevant information that can faithfully be represented by those transactions. So IFRS 16 is actually specifying the IFRS reporter, whoever it is, the entity, to recognize, measure, present, and disclose leases so that everything that is done by you, whether it is recognized, presented, whatever, everything is front of your user of your financial statement, and they are very much knowledgeable about that. The new standard has actually is actually providing only a single lease accounting model that requires the leasees to recognize the assets and liabilities for all the leases, unless the term of your lease is of course less than 12 months, and lessors continue to classify the leases as they were using in their accounting statements before IFRS 16. So the main point is from the point of view of leases, because for the financial people, if they know, of course, before what used to happen was I had an operating lease and I had a financial lease. Operating leases were expensed in my P&L. They didn't form a part as an asset or a liability. The asset, whatever the leased asset was, they didn't form a part of my statements of financial position as in the soft. So they do not become the part of my statement of financial position, and hence whatever the expenses were, they expensed and everything happened, and a footnote was attached to your financial statements, to the reports that go to your users. Just a footnote was attached to it that this is the amount that is pertaining to the operating leases that the company operating lease that the company has entered into with this person. So this was the thing of operating leases before. So it was expensed also and everything was there, but the leased asset and anything that the entity was using wasn't put up into my financial position, that is your balance sheet. They didn't form a part of your balance sheet, and hence, though they do not misinterpret it, but of course they did not provide it the full information that a user of your financial information should have, because they were not very much evident in your financial position statement. That was only attached as a footnote. As a footnote, of course, everyone knows footnote is just like a working note that you do. Just footnote is attached like these are the items that are pertaining to this is the accounting measure used, etc., etc. Most of your users, like small investors or something, they usually do not go much into your financial statements footnotes. Your footnotes accompanying your financial statements, so they do not really dig deep into that. So they could be misinterpreted or something could have happened, and that is the reason IFRS 16 has made all the leases as a part of your financial position. So now that is a statement of your financial position, the SOPs, and once it is a part of your financial position statement, everything is evident and is in what is the asset that is the entity using, what are the methods the entity using for lease accounting and everything. So there really no changes in the methods and everything that has been done. It is just the representation have been provided in a different way. Now there is one recognition exemption that has been also put up by IFRS 16. The recognition exemption says that a leasee may elect. Now this is not a mandatory, this is just dependable on the entity that is entering into a lease. A leasee may definitely elect not to apply this IFRS 16 requirements to short-term leases and low value underlying asset. Short-term leases are the term is less than 12 months, the lease term is less than 12 months or something. So of course those do not need to form a part of your statement of financial position. You can continue to use in a normal way. You do not have to put it as per that, because of course the term is less than 12 months. It is not of very much importance from a big investor point of view that could become a part of your SOFP, that is statement of financial position. And then is the low value asset. Now when this exemption is actually for those type of assets that whose value, the value of my asset is low, not much material that it can have a big effect on my position. Now, this is totally dependable on the leasee as to why is he or the entity is applying this exemption on the asset. What is the value measurement assessment that he has done? A leasee can, of course, assess the value of an underlying asset based on the value of the asset when it is new, irrespective of whatever is the asset used for and what is the residual value or something like that. So for the comparing, the IFRS 16 has actually provided me that the asset that I will be using in the low value asset. So I am going to compare the market value, the actual value. If today I am going to go out and purchase the asset, what is the value of that asset and what is the value of the leased asset? So this is the comparison term that has been provided. It is just information. It is not provided in a section. It has just been provided in an appendix. And of course, the whatever judgment or the assessment that the management is doing on the low value of the asset, it should be done on the absolute basis. Leases of a low value asset will qualify for the accounting treatment regardless of whether those leases are material to the leasee or not. If in the absolute basis the amount of my actual asset is material enough to be put in my statements, but the underlying asset value in the leased asset is less, then also I will be putting that asset under IFRS 16 right to use asset under my leases. The reason being, the market value of the actual asset, if I would purchase it, was important and material enough to be put in my balance sheet. Now, talking about the scope of IFRS. IFRS 16 apply to leased contracts that the entity enter into, except for the leases to explore the minerals, oils, which the IFRS 6 exploration and evaluation of resources look into. Leases of biological assets, because it is within the scope of IAS 41. Then service concession agreements, that is service concession arrangement, that is a part of IFRIC 12. And the intellectual property, if there is an intellectual property license that is granted by a lessor, it is within the scope of IFRS 15. That is, it is a contract for a revenue with a customer. It is not a leased contract. Then rights held by a leasee under licensing agreement for items such as films, videos, copyrights, patents, they are within the scope of IAS 38, intangible assets. So those, the leases and everything, the contracts are looked upon by IAS 38 and not the IFRS 16 leased agreements. Now, as I've already informed that IFRS 16 is going to take up the IAS 17 platform, and as I have informed you, IAS 17 did bifurcation, or it segregated the leases as per operating leases and financing leases, and operating leases remained off balance sheet. And that is the reason IFRS 16 has actually removed this, has eliminated this segregation. This means that IFRS 16 is actually removing the operating leases classification for operating lease classification for leases, and this will eliminating the ability of your of the entity or the company to report the operating leases in the footnotes of your financial statement. the main reason why this has been done is, the reason is that by reporting the operating leases in the footnotes, companies were actually uh, hurting the small investors. If I put it like that way, it was hurting the small investors, which do not have the resources to study your financial statement so much, provide so much time on your financial statement, and can dig deep into the statements to form out that yes, this is the amount that has been expensed in terms of your operating leases. And of course, an annual lease payment that a company pays even in the operating lease is also very material enough. It is not a very small amount. It is almost similar to a financed lease amount. Just the amount increases or decreases in financial lease depending on the terms of usage and everything. But in operating leases also the amount is not very less. So everything was clear in the was still clear in the financial statement. But a small investors who do not have that much information about the financial technicalities, who do not have a financial background, and the investors who are investing, they were not being able to look upon these differences of the operating leases and financial leases. So there is actually, in general, there were two criterias, rather the two implications that a company is going to have: the accounting implication and the financial implication. The accounting implication is like treating all the leases as financial lease. So now there is no difference in classifying a lease and then treating it as an operating, then accounting it as an expense in my P&L and all of these, and then financial lease classification needs to be done and everything. All that is just removed. Any leased agreement is looked upon as a single leased accounting model agreement. There is no difference into it. And the financial implication is now all my the assets or the leased assets are going to become a part of my SOFP, that is statements of financial position, asset and a simultaneous significant liability for that. So now it is going to increase the financial indebtedness of a company or an entity, and this will be a financial implication. So everything has to be now looked clearly. If an investor will have to look, or for any reason the financial statements are used upon, now also greater focus or concentration knowledge will be required. But now, as I've informed you, as I told you, like, since the people around are going so much global, they're getting so much knowledgeable about the financial know-how of for the purpose of investments. So now everyone is very much apt to know, as in what are the implications of operating, financial leases, contracts, etc. So now everyone has become so much technically know-how capable. So it is actually helping the people a lot. And IFRS 68 actually addresses the criticism, because now the whole before the classification was done on the basis of this right to use, whether I have the right to use the asset, control the asset or not. If I do not have the control over the asset, it was an operating lease. And if I had, it was a financial lease. This was one of the basic difference for the classification of a leases in IAS 17. But now, since there are only single leases, so now it is actually a right to use model, a right of use model that is applied. So this IFRS 16 right of use model, for which is used for leased classification or a lease classification, is it applies a control model for identifying whether the contract is a lease or not. And if it is not a lease, then either it is a service contract, and under which IFRS it is going to be accorded. So hence now the whole focus from classifying it as an operating or a financing lease, now it has moved from identifying whether it is a lease or not. So now the question is yes or no. Now it is not operating or financial. Now the question is whether it is a lease agreement or not. So it is a yes or no question that the management or the whoever reporter will have to ask. That is, the IFRS reporter will have to ask. Now, since the financial and segregation rather is not there, so the asymmetrical model for leasing and lessor is there. There are not much differences in the accounting models that they are having. The accounting model that is presented by IFRS 16. And IFRS 16 is applicable for the periods on 1st of January 2019 and after. So it's been only 1 year. If we take COVID-19 into effect, most of the companies are still going through IFRS 16 know-hows and everything. Sorry. So now if I look into a lease, what is a lease? Lease is basically a contract between a lessor and a leasee, in which the lessor conveys the right to control the asset in exchange of consideration. The right to control some asset is provided by the lessor to the leasee, and in return there is a payment, that is the exchange of consideration. Now, exchange of control, in order to have a control over the asset, leasee will have to think on two topics: whether he has the right to direct the asset and obtain the economical benefits arriving from the asset. So I need direct the asset, as in I can use the asset as I want. And this is of course an example we're going to see. I am going to use the asset as the leasee wants. It can use for any purpose as it wants, as if it was my own asset, and I can derive economic benefits also. Holding on to asset is only not the point. I should also derive economic benefits from the asset. The asset should be beneficial for me in terms of my ordinary relevant activities. It should assist my activities. Here, so sorry. This is a small example. There was a customer, carrier, and a transport company, Travelers, have entered into a contract. The contract says that 10 specified models of cars shall be provided by the Travelers to the carriers for use for 5 years. So 10 models of specified models of car shall be provided by Travelers to the carriers, and they shall be using it for a period of 5 years. So this was a lease agreement. Carriers have actually leased 10 cars for 5 years from Travelers. Now carriers decide on the date, time, place, goods, etc. that are to be transported with those cars. So Travelers are deciding as in what needs to be transported, when it needs to be transported, on what date it needs to be transported, where is it going to be transported, etc. All of these things are decided regarding the cars by the carriers, that is the leasing. Now, when the cars are not in use, when carriers are not using those cars for transportation or any traveling or something, those cars are parked in the premises of the carriers, and they are used to store certain materials. If there are certain materials, it is used to store those materials in the cars. Contract though lay down certain restrictions by the Travelers on carriers for transporting certain kind of goods. For example, explosive. And this is a condition that has been laid down by the carriers on the Travelers, in a way that these are the items that cannot be transported, like explosives or oil or something like that. These kind of materials, they should not be transported in the cars. This is just an agreement restriction that has been laid down. Now, when it comes to services, repairs, and maintenance of the 10 cars, Travelers are going to provide a substitute to the carriers for the car which is taken for servicing or repairs or maintenance. So that means in any way, carriers are going to have 10 cars. If one is taken, one is provided to them in substitute of the taken one. Now, also it is provided by the contract that carriers shall at time require drivers for delivering certain goods at certain places that shall be provided by the travelers. Now, this is one of the major thing. Here, what they have provided is that in the contract, it is provided that there are some places to transport to where carriers shall be requiring drivers from the traveler's side. So traveler will be supplying them with the driver. Driver is going to take the car and the whatever item that needs to be transported and shall transport it to that place. But the drivers are travelers' employees. They are instructed by the travelers to take those items to that place. Then only they shall be acting upon it. Carrier cannot order them to do that work or to just transport the car or transport the goods to at certain place using the car or something. So here, driver is a traveler's employee. Driver follows the instructions of travelers and not the carriers. The place and time is just provided by the carriers. Rest, everything is decided by the traveler, as in what way to use or something and which driver to send and everything. And drivers are of course chosen on the availability of the drivers. Whoever driver is available, only that driver shall be sent by the traveler. So in this case, customer has the right to obtain substantially all the benefits. Customer, that means the carrier, has the right to obtain all the economic benefits that is arising from that car in the period of 5 years of usage. So one right to control thing has been checked upon. So this is right. I am the carriers are drawing economic benefits from the car. And the second, carriers are deciding the time, place, goods, date, and if they are not using the car, they are using it for storage, which is parked in their own premises. So they have the right to direct the asset also, as in where it is going to be parked, where it is going to go, where it is going to deliver what item or something like that. Every decision is on carriers. So this is actually a lease agreement and not a service contract. Though drivers are provided to the carriers or something, but drivers are the property of travelers. They have not, they are just been provided to carriers, but everything that the driver is following is an instruction that from the traveler and not the carrier. So drivers are not a part of the lease agreement. They are just being provided for the carrier's transportation of goods to some places. So this is a kind of a lease agreement where the leasee has the right to use the asset, control the asset, and is drawing economical benefits arising from that asset. Now let's take the example in a different way. Everything was like this. There was a customer carrier. I'm just providing you with an example. There was a transport company, traveler, and carrier. Now carrier, instead of asking for of car or something like that, they had entered with travelers with an agreement that says that for the next 5 years, in the next period of 5 years, they shall be transporting materials to said places using the specified models of car, irrespective of the number. There is no number. The agreement says that travelers shall be transporting the goods with the use of a specified model of car for the period of 5 years. There is no information about what goods to be transported, which model car, which car needs to be used or something, which driver to be used, and everything. So this is a kind of a service agreement and not a leased agreement. The reason being, carriers are not in a position to control the cars. They are not in a position to direct the cars, as in where are they being used. Today, if I say that I need these 10 packets to be delivered to some place, the traveler's transport company is going to take those packets and deliver it to that place. That is the only thing they are going to do. I'm not interested. I cannot say that you should bring that red color car only or a blue color car only and that kind of a driver only and nothing like that. The only point is that you have to transport these materials to a different place. So this is the difference between a service agreement and a leased agreement. This, which is on the screen, is a leased agreement. The example that I just twisted is a service agreement where the leasee do not have the is not in the position to direct the asset or control the asset and draw economic benefits from the asset. They are economic benefits are drawn in the usual course of business. They are not drawn with the help of use of that asset. Now coming on to portfolio of leases. There is also a term that has been used under leases, is the portfolio of leases. Portfolio of leases is actually a practical expedient which the standard can be applied to. There is no specific ways of there which has been defined under IFRS 16 where portfolio of leases can be used. It is just that they have it provided as a practical expedient. Now IFRS 16 means that portfolio of leases means all those leased agreements with the same kind of a person. Let's say in the past example, traveler and carrier had entered into 5 lease agreements where 10 models of this car, 5 models of this car, where the model difference is very minimal. I mean, on practical basis, it is not very much. It's just minimal differences like the colors or something. The very minimal differences can have been there. Not a difference of automatic car and self-driven car, but a color difference, the internal decoration, everything, whatever it is, in a car. So let's say the carriers and travelers entered into 5 different kinds of leased agreements. The parties are the same, lease agreements, and the underlying asset is also the same. They have the similar characteristic. So what can leasee and the lessor do is they can just apply IFRS 16 instead of applying it on every particular lease agreement. They can just apply IFRS 16 in the sense on the portfolio, that is the size and composition of the portfolio, as in what is the size of the portfolio and composition, how many cars are there, what is the per price or the standalone price of the asset and everything. All of these here, in this way you can apply IFRS 16 to the whole portfolio instead of applying it to each and every lease agreement in question. So this is what a portfolio of leases means under IFRS 16. So now, as we've seen the IFRS 16 changes from IAS 17 to IFRS 16. Now the differences that is looking up are mostly under the books of my leasee, because lessor used to treat it in nothing new ways. Just the effects, the more effects were shown on the books of leasee and the lessor. Leasee in case of operational leases and financial leases. Operational leases, as I'd informed you, were treated as an expense for the P&L. They didn't form a part of the balance sheet, but financial leases did form a part of my SOF, that is statement of financial positions. So now in the current scenario of IFRS 16, what there is in the books of leasing, any lease, any kind of any leases, all the leases shall be giving the effect in this manner, where it will be classified as an asset and a liability. The asset will be depreciated and liability will be will be set off with the interest amount. Just like taking a loan from a bank. How do you take a loan from a bank and how do you show its effect on your financial statements? The financial lease is also going to show the same effects in your financial statements for the liability side, and just how you treat an asset in your financial statement, the similar way is to use the asset and depreciation for the leased asset in the books of leasing, of course. So, and there is something also known, which is in the practical scenario is used for the purpose of lease agreements. One is the modification in the lease. There are times that in the period while I am in my leased period, there can be a change in the or modification in the leased agreements. So leased agreements also have become one of the major concerns for our leased agreements and accounting treatment onto that. So instead of getting into the theoretical part, let us just look it in the way it is going to be presented and everything with the help of an Excel example. Yes, so the main things have been written down here. I'll just help you with the example. There is a leasee and the lessor, and the leasee enters into a 10-year lease of a floor of a building with an option to extend for 5 years. Now the lease says that 10 years are fixed and I will be in near future. Leasee may increase the term for 5 years. Lease payments for the first 10 years will remain for 50K, that is $50,000, and in the extended period, that after 10 years period, it shall be $55,000. And every annual lease payment shall be made on 1st of January of the year, on the first day of the year. Now, to obtain the lease, leasee has incurred certain direct costs. Direct costs are actually payment of payment that is actually being made to a former tenant for 15,000, and 5,000 is provided to the real estate broker, or a real estate commission that is provided to the broker. Now, as an incentive to the leasee for entering into a lease, lessor agrees to reimburse the leasee the real estate commission. That is, out of this 20,000, 5,000 is reimbursed by the lessor as an incentive to entering the lease of 5,000. Now, there is no reasonable certainty at the time, at the initial recognition. There is no certainty to the lessor and the leasee that the term of this building floor is going to increase beyond 10 years. Hence, everything is recognized and measured in normal sense, like as if it was a lease of only 10 years. The interest rate implicit in the lease is not readily determinable. There is no interest rate that can be determined at the time of my lease agreement date, and hence the incremental borrowing rate is used, that is 5% per annum. The incremental borrowing rate is actually the rate which says that if the leasee would have instead of getting into a lease, if they had purchased the new asset, and if they would have taken some financing for that purpose and everything, what will be the rate that have been applied? That is the incremental borrowing rate. That is the normal rate that is in the industry, you say. For the first 10-year period is 5%. Leave this 6% for time being. So everything has been provided to me for the first 10 years, irrespective of the optional period. If you do not see or look upon the optional period, my lease agreement is for 10 years. The annual lease payment is 50,000. Direct cost that has been incurred is 20,000, and I have received an incentive from the leasee, from the lessor of 5,000. The salvage value of the asset is 0, and the useful life is 10 only. And on the 1st of January of every month, I am going to pay the leased payments. That is the annual lease payment. So now on the initial recognition, these are the entries that will be passed in the books of my leasing. Right of use of asset is actually the asset under the financial lease. The floor of the building that we have, but that will be known as the right of use asset. That is how it is going to be presented. Lease liability and cash or installment. Now on the 1st of January only, I have paid the installments of this, and now this amount, how we have reached it, is here. At the commencement date, leasee has made a payment of 50,000. It has incurred an initial cost of 20,000, and an incentive has been received from the lessor. So these three are understood. Any problems in these three amounts, if anyone has, can of course put it in the chat box. This is the payment that I have done on the 1st of January. This is the cost that I have incurred for the acquisition of that building floor, and this is the incentive that has been paid by the lessor to me for the purpose of entering into a lease. Now this amount, this 50,000, is a fixed amount that I'm going to receive over a period of time. Over the next 10 years, I'm going to receive 50,000 annually. But of course, these 50,000 is, let's say, future values. I am going to value my asset in my financial statement at present value, which we usually do. I am going to value my assets at present value in the balance sheet, which is the normal implication of the standards. So 50,000 is the past, is the future values of the amount that I'm going to receive for my asset. I am going to take out the present value for that asset, because that I am going to recognize in my books of accounts. The present value of the asset needs to be assigned. So here I have laid down the present value of the asset. These are the years. Only 9. The reason being because for the first 50,000 payment has been done. So these are the 9 years. The future value of my asset total will be $450,000. Rate that has been provided, the implicit rate, incremental borrowing cost rate that has been provided is 5%. So I have just got down to the present value of my asset. By using the normal PV function, that is the present value function, I have received the present value. So in present, the value of my leased asset is actually $355,391. I am going to pay $450, but that is a future value. The present value of the asset is $355,391. So this is what I have actually provided for in my financial statement. My lease liability is shown at present value of the asset. This is the, of course, the first installment that I have paid. So the asset balance that I have is 4,05,391. Also, I have attributed direct costs because you attribute direct costs related to the asset to the asset. I have attributed my direct costs, and this is what I have received as a cash, that is the leased incentive in for my right to use that for my asset, let's say. So this is the journal entries and the presentation for my initial recognition for the first year of my leased agreement. I have recognized the asset, I have recognized the liability, all of them at the present value, and any costs that have been directly attributable, any income that is directly attributable to the asset. Now, for the whole term of 10 years, today I'm going to assume that is the first day of my lease agreement. I am assuming that I am going to attribute liability, interest, and asset depreciation in my financial statements. Whenever, for the presentation purposes of the leasee has to attribute the interest as a charge to the liability, and depreciation for the asset has to be charged, because whenever lease agreement is entered into, there is an asset for the in the present value, and a liability for that amount is being created in your financial statement of financial position. So I'm going to account for the interest of the liability, and I'm going to charge the depreciation for the asset. Now, in the first year, my opening balance is the present value of my liability. The present value of the liability is the present value of the all the cash flows that I am going to provide for in the future. This is the lease payment that has already been done for the first year. And this is the interest liability. Of course, you can take out the interest liability in a with a normal formula of this amount into the percentage, but I have preferred it to be more precise. I have used the formula that is used in number of days, the interest liability depending on the number of days. As you can see here, I provided 365. The reason because it wasn't written over here. After that, I have provided for every year. This I prefer using this interest the interest calculation formula. You can of course do it by opening balance into this percentage. Any formula can be used. I prefer using this formula. Also, I can show you. The amount is same, but I prefer using this formula. You can also use the formula that I have just now shown to you to take out the interest calculation. This is the opening balance, lease payments that has actually been done, interest liability, and the year-end balance. Year-end balance is whatever is the amount calculation, whatever the amount that is left to be payback is the year-end balance. This is the calculations that I have done. Opening balance, charging the interest, and the year-end balance. This is how you perform the interest pertaining to a liability. Now, when I'm going to, this is the calculation part. The presentation part is for this year, I am going to charge the interest liability under the cash flow interest payments. This amount, that is the particular interest payment. Cash payment, that is the payment of the principal part. In my financing activity, and the total interest liability, that is the total payment or interest liability. Instead of saying interest liability, so I would just change it to the installments. Yeah, installments for the liability that will be forming a part of your profit and loss and other comprehensive income. So this 50,000 will come there, financing the principal payment part, and the interest part will be under the cash flow for the interest payments. This is how I have accounted for my liability. Now I have recognized an asset also for that in lease for the lease agreement. So the total cost of the asset has been valued. This is the total cost of the asset, the value of the asset that I will be accounting, that I'll be charging depreciation on. This has been this is actually a calculation of this amount, this and this, the costs and income that have been attributed. The total calculation has been made, and $4,20,391 point some cents is my amount for the liability that I have accounted for in terms of the lease agreement for that floor of the building. This is the normal SLN depreciation method, SLN formula that I have used, because I've assumed that the depreciation is charged with the SLN straight line method. Sorry for this. The straight line method. This is the depreciation that is charged, and the year-end balance is this, and this is the opening balances, depreciations, and the ending balances. Now, all of this was going on until the end of year 6, that is on on the 31st of December 2016. On the end of the 6th year, that is on 31st of December 2016, Leasy acquired one more company, and now Leasy requires more space and they have actually entered into a business that is going to have, that has a good going concern, and hence everything is good. Now they are of the opinion, Leasy thinks that the lease agreement would have to be extended. So this optional period that was provided, so this optional period that was provided, the leasee is of the opinion that this optional period would have to be accessed. The reason is they had acquired a new company, the going concern has become more fruitful, and everything has happened, and now they are assuming that they are going to use that building for more years, more than 10 years. Hence, now there has been a modification in the lease agreement. The lease agreement has been modified and not changed, not a new agreement, because the object that has been used, that is the floor of the building, is the same. No new floor has been added to it. No changes that has been done in the floor, no change in the agreements, only the amounts has been changed and pertaining to the same asset in the agreement. So there is a modification. The modification says that now, after 10 years, for the next 5 years, $55,000 will be the annual payments. But now the incremental borrowing rate, now there was no rate that was decided in the lease terms. Hence, any present incremental borrowing rate, the current incremental borrowing rate will have to be taken. If it was decided, no changes would have to be done. But now, since incremental borrowing rate was used since at the inception only, now also the incremental borrowing rate, so the current incremental borrowing rate that is prevailing in the market is 6%. The percent rate has changed, and the annual lease payment terms has changed, and the period has been increased. These are the 3 modifications that has been done. So now what we'll be doing at the end of my 6th year, here as per my 5% interest rate, at the end of my 6th year, it was the lease liability, the present value of my lease liability was shown as $1,86,811. This is what the amount that my lease liability was showing. And the amount for my asset was 1,68,156. This is the amount that was shown in my right of use, or right to use the asset of my leased asset. The balance showing was 168, and here it was 186 for my leased liability, the present value. Now, as we all know that whatever payments that shall be received, let's only focus on this table. The payments that shall be received are future values. Even after the sixth year, whatever amount that I'll be receiving, or the lessee will be receiving, is a future value. The lessee shall be paying this amount in future. So these are the future values. I will have to account them in my books as present value, because I present the asset and the liability as per fair value, that is the present value. I am going to take out new present values for these much lease payments that are to be made. But the new reason being, my incremental rate has increased. Before it was 5% when at the inception of my lease agreement. But now when I'm going to modify the lease agreement in the end of my 6th year and the starting of my 7th year, when I'm going to modify my lease agreement, the incremental borrowing cost has actually increased by 1%. So I'm going to take out a new present value for all these future values. I'm going to take out a new present value for all these future values. So a new value that has been provided, a new present value for all these amount. The remaining amount to be paid is 4,75,000, but the present value for that particular amount is $3,78,173. So I'm not going to totally account for this and add it to my liability. I already have my liability existing at 186,811. The only thing I'm going to do is increase it by the difference. Whatever is the difference, I'm going to increase it. Here, as you can see, this minus this amount, I have derived this amount. I'm just going to increase the liability. Instead of providing for a total new liability, I'm going to increase the liability by the excess amount. So this is the excess amount. So the first, in the presentation, which I'll be doing is, I'm going to increase the value of the asset and the liability by the excess amount. This is the excess amount that I have calculated here by the difference of this amount and this existing amount. I'm going to increase my amount of asset and liability, not only just the liability, but also the asset, because now the asset has a new time period, that is the new period of usage period, and the asset amount is also going to be increased. So here, the balance on the, I've provided for the liability, I've provided for the liability, this is the amount. Now when I'm now when I'm saying about the asset, when I'm talking about the asset, the total amount will be existing amount, whatever is the existing amount, and I'm going to add the excess amount. So this is what I have derived from it. This amount 168,156 plus 191,362. When I add these two, I get an amount of $3,59,518, which is the new balance for my new opening balance from the start of my 7th year. And the same treatment I will be doing, just the amounts are going to change. This amount up till the 10th year will remain same. From the 11th, 5th, 12th, 13th, 14th, and the 15th year, that is the next 5 years, this amount is going to change to 55,000. Depreciation is also going to change to 39,946. These are the changes that are going to be affected into my statements. The amount in the balance sheet for my liability and the assets are, these are the amounts that shall be shown in the assets pertaining to the right of use asset and the lease liability. These are the amount that shall be shown, that shall be presented at the year end of every year. And here, if you can see, the amount was of course 5,000, but due to certain calculations, 1,000 excess that I was getting, I just adjusted that. There was a difference of 1,000 amount, which was a difference of the present value calculations and everything that has arisen. So I've just provided for that. The value of the asset at the end of my year term is 0. So I've just, which is actually the salvage value was 0. That was to be at the end of the term. And the liability at the year end, when the lease term ended, has automatically been provided as 0, has automatically been subdued as 0. So this is how we will provide for, this is how we will provide for under the lease agreement. A leasee is going to provide and lessor is going to provide in the same manner in the books of accounts. These are the initial recognitions. On subsequent measurement, that is on the end of my each year report, or the end of my each reporting period, and the effects will be, these are the effects that are shown in the P&L and the OCI, and these are the amounts that will be that shall be shown at the end of my reporting period in my statement of financial positions pertaining to the leased asset and the lease liability. So that was it in the lease liability, because there are no changes in the method and everything, just the presentations have changed. This is how we will be accounting for in our IFRS 16 leases. As I told you, there are no certain changes, it's just the changes in the presentation and the disclosures. And there is one more thing, IFRS 16 says that all of these in the presentation disclosure formats of my leasee, all of these shall be presented in a tabular format. That means in a similar way as I presented it, that is depreciation pertaining to that asset, interest liability, cash payment of the principal part, installments, that is the liability, whatever name you want to provide it to in your financial statement. It is advised by the, it is actually provided in the IFRS 16 that whenever you are going to present it in your financial statement, a tabular format shall be used just like these, and every amount shall be provided. So here it is going to increase lease liability for this amount for that period in here, and asset, right to use the asset, the ending balance of that asset, and this is how you're going to present it as in the notes of your financial statement, because it is being provided by the IFRS 16 part that you shall use a tabular format until and unless there is something new format that can be used for your lease agreement for presentation purposes that is more informative to your users instead of this tabular format. So this is how you're going to actually present it. Just I've provided it here. This is a kind of a tabular format that you're going to use. This is I provided just for the first year. The amounts are going to change as per the reporting periods. So if any questions can be provided under the chat box, because this was it in the IFRS 16 side. There wasn't very much. It was just the presentation, disclosure, and the calculations. The calculations are exactly the same that we used to do in IAS 17, but this is just the presentation purposes differences that have been provided. Any questions? Can please be provided under the chat box, please. You're welcome. Okay, so thank you. If any questions can of course be provided by at our support@vispsolutions.com page. You can of course send your feedbacks and any questions pertaining to this session in that mail. Thank you so much, and Eid Mubarak to all of you. Have a great Eid. Let's pray for a safer, healthy, and nice world, please. Thank you. You're welcome. Thanks a lot for your time too. You're welcome. Eid Mubarak.